Good evening and welcome to our review of the biggest news events in 2018. To start off, we'll look at the times when we as a country were tested, both by Mother Nature and by our very own people. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake in the Hela and Southern Highlands provinces was both unexpected and devastating. For a week, the true extent of damages was not known. The eruption of the formerly dormant Cordova volcano in the East Sepik province was the first test of fire for the fairly new provincial administration. The Manam volcano in Madang saw a resurgence, coupled with heavier than usual rainfall, which caused major flooding throughout the province. The trial into the sinking of the MV Rabaul Queen, staged in East New Britain, was finally wrapped up, but it left more questions than answers for grieving survivors and families. And to the man-made disasters, our national flag carrier has had an extremely tough year. First with the burning of the Guinea aircraft at the Mendi airport over an election-related court decision. The second and more tragic incident involving our national carrier was the failed landing and crashing of PX-073 in Truk, Micronesia.
In the early part of March, many Papua New Guineans in the highlands were woken up by a series of earthquakes. While there were concerns, many didn't know how bad it was for those within the epicenter until hours later.
Population in 718, half sleep low, half sleep low here. Now this event has been take place. Events have been take place long and long when it's Monday morning, around 3 o'clock. Now I'm taking 3 hours, full swing and again. Now all the houses and damage.
Those hardest hit were in the most inaccessible parts of the Hela and Southern Highlands provinces. MTV crews traveled to two of the worst affected villages. In Timu village, one crew met a 17-year-old boy, orphaned by the disaster. His whole family of 7 were among 30 people buried in a landslide triggered by the 7.5 magnitude quake.
Now by Mr. Boy, me people worried or this blah.
3 bodies were found, the rest were buried too far beneath the rubble. Rescue efforts were slow. For the first part of the week, it was difficult to know how many people had been killed or injured, or how many urgently needed food or water.
Na disla papa blaus tu bla house ta solo lus lo ni stapia na house tu stapon tapia e mi blin na biska kam stap molo ya e mo simna sambla osem or sambla ol gaman tu solo mi blin sawa mi bla bus remote retuna.
Without the bodies, the doctors could only certify the deaths based on the number of those buried in the rubble. For those outside of Papua New Guinea, this was not the usual kind of earthquake disaster the world was used to seeing. There were no big buildings destroyed, no large clusters of deaths, and no road access. The real crisis was in the destruction of food gardens and water sources. Rescue operations were also complicated by the lack of available information.
4 days after welcoming 2018, the small island of Cordova outside the East Sepik capital became the center of debate and focus by authorities. The dormant island volcano erupted, spewing ash and lava and causing panic among the islanders. It was a frightening experience for many. An unpleasant surprise to begin 2018 as it became a national disaster soon after the 2017 national elections and a challenge to the local political leaders. But both the national and East Sepik provincial government responded to save those on the island.
School when I'm something, bami plau kana sim lahat. Housing, bami plau kana sim lahat. When I'm lili something, bami plau kana sim lahat. Province plebla la help me now. Please, you help me lo help me yet.
Nearly 700 men, women and children were evacuated to the nearby island of Rup, with food rations flooding in all over the country, including NGOs, church organizations and business houses. With no proper assessment of the volcano's activity, relocating to the mainland was the only option to guarantee safety. A relocation exercise was carried out as government authorities opened dialogue with landowners from the mainland. Vessels from the PNG Defence Force were used to transport the affected islanders of Kadovar. For nearly a year, the Kadovar Islanders have resettled at the Dandan Care Center. It's a long drive out of town and an hour-long boat ride to the care center. Life at Dandan has been different for the Kadovar Islanders. When MTV visited the care center 2 months ago, many underlying issues remain. Reports of an alleged attempt rape and violence were all brushed aside by local authorities in Wewak.
Na dislaray sa pagpinis na bempla gulo sama ponte dandal online sa background ulo sa korosyon temipla na mipla ba selit so dry na bempla karakam le so kau kom sa mipla sa planyo la garden ya disla kau ko ya ino alright na mipla ka kamautin.
According to the locals, NGOs, business houses and churches have been constantly visiting the care center to support the affected islanders.
The government no emola NGO providing water service blow school na last tablo kan semol books na buildings ino building canvas na side lo government lo providing sa school and no and numbers the staff and depend on NGOs.
With a recent visit by the local MP and state officials, the Kadovar Islanders want to be relocated further inland. There are many reasons for this. Local MP Kevin Isifu and National Planning Minister Richard Maru also want another relocation exercise but have yet to discuss options.
In order to properly settle people and villages, you have to identify land for one, subdivide it to families so that they can properly resettle and make business, do their normal lives.
For many, life has been challenging living away from home. January 5, 2019 will be a year since Kadovar erupted and displaced these men, women and children who are now at the mercy of the various levels of government.
On the 25th of August this year, the Manam volcanic eruption destroyed at least 9 villages on the island. An internal evacuation was carried out, where those affected by the eruption were moved to Jogari village, one of the temporary care centers set up by local leaders.
Kamlong kuluguma boda baleaw am bibla place mc bibla bagrab na kolang ontem dangale padli bokure bus bokure stap longa zone do paya bagodan allo internal education no now meeting osema people lo manam they are residing in the island minutim bol go back because mibla mubarana mibla simtabi ontem all ward members the one on ward oselo baleaw border go in Narpla villages all reside now stable manam. Because that's another disaster again.
This was the aftermath of the eruption. Food gardens, houses and water sources were completely destroyed, leaving more than 1,000 men, women and children without food and clean drinking water.
I don't know how we're going to sustain ourselves.
Food rations were brought to the island by the PNG Defence Force and distributed to affected villages. The result also left the only primary school on the island closed, with 2 health officers fleeing to the mainland for safety. And the health clinic had no means of attending to patients after it was covered by ashfall and mud stones from the eruption.
But at the moment, though, since yesterday, the morning,
Clan leaders had also again highlighted the need to speed up the Manam Resettlement Authority so affected islanders could be relocated and settled permanently. The Medang governor and other Medang MPs visited the islanders. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill also paid a visit and made a commitment of 3 million kina to assist them. Meanwhile, in this year alone, hundreds of commuters traveling the North Coast Road of Medang were either robbed, attacked or even killed at Banab. The collapse of the Banab Bridge earlier this year has taken a whole year for the construction work of a permanent bridge to begin. As a result, commuters resorted to using ferries to cross the river.
Olmano struggle. Oleno bogia North Coast or struggle lo.
However, during a heavy downpour and when there is flooding, the risk of travelers making it to the other side of the river is doubled. The flooding usually covers walkways where there was once dry land. Committees had to pay local helpers to transport their cargo or betel nut bags.
I'm waras a tight Miblas action times there some time boats are upside all by sing.
Emo levi na wari blam blam line la bogea you miss a patient kind heavy ocean expense 2 km.
These were some of the last pictures taken before the MV Rabalquin left Buka 6 years ago. On the ship, one passenger posted pictures and wrote status update on Facebook about the bad weather that they were going through. And these were pictures taken a few hours later after the ship sank. Some passengers and crew members on board the vessel were rescued. Others arrived in body bags a few days later. It is a stark reminder of what happened on the 2nd of February 2012 when MV Rabalquin sank off the coast of Insafen in the Morobe province.
I actually lost a wife and a daughter during that voyage.
In June 2012, 4 months after the disaster, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill ordered a commission of inquiry into the maritime disaster. A 250-page report was filed by Judge Warwick Andrew based on passengers and crew members' testimonies, including the 2 accused, Captain Peter Sharp and the chief mate, Captain Anthony Chiao. In the Commission of Inquiry report, the particulars of the ship were provided, including its incompetency to carry passengers exceeding its limit during the time of the sinking, and a manifest that doesn't have names of all the passengers on it.
We have been waiting for 4 years. This case to be heard. At last, mibla yari mosem. Emi mibla evim now lo kokopo, which is emi relief long okata parents na okata survivors we mi makimol na okata we oli sana plong backside lo mi now oli evim this la relief inside lo life blong all that is la case. It will come na meba rest now ba mibla yamamas now.
In April 2016, after numerous court proceedings, the case was brought to trial. MV Rabalquin owner Peter Sharp and his ship's captain Anthony Chiao were brought before the court to answer to 172 manslaughter charges. Over 200 witnesses stood against Peter Sharp and Anthony Chiao to testify. Sharp and Chiao were later acquitted of all the 172 counts of manslaughter charges. After numerous adjournments, the trial resumed again early this year. This time, Sharp and Chiao were responding to the charges of sending an unseaworthy ship to sea, and with them was Grace Amen, the then Rabal Shipping's Kimber branch manager.
The lives that were lost, all pick na doc number by me just lara mo senta sola. We are talking about human beings, so it is very important that Mipla must fight strong. Justice must be done to the families of the deceased one and the victims.
In October this year, 6 years after the matter was brought to court, the trial finally reached a conclusion. State Prosecutor Pondros Kalowin submitted a notice of declaration that no further charges will be laid against the trio. Captain Peter Sharp, Master Mate Anthony Chiao, and Rabal Shipping's Kimber branch manager Grace Amen, the 3 key accused in the trial, were set free from all the charges. It is understood a civil court action is the next step for survivors and relatives to pursue. The matter is now under scrutiny.
Less than 20 minutes after Link PNG landed at Mandi Domestic Airport, protesters comprising mainly of youths stormed in and set the aircraft alight. Link PNG, a subsidiary company of Air Guinea, resumed its flights to Mandi in February this year after a long closure because of election-related violence. It was into its 4th month of operation when the incident occurred. The attack on the aircraft happened a few minutes after the Waigani National Court had dismissed the election petition case of Southern Highlands Governor seat runner-up Joseph Kobol. According to the youths, the justice system failed them. They were expecting a change in leadership at the top level.
They were already celebrating 1 week ahead. How did the information leak out? How did they know that this is enemy come out? It is bias. There's something wrong in the judiciary. Now only celebrate finish now, only relax now, all to go, will win finish. Now how did you get this decision? Now Mibla foul now, Mibla think, hey, we had the best QC, the best outside lawyer Mibla Kamicher, we are confident, and then Mibla Sabayos this la country, and this la special circumstance, and first of its kind of this la country. Now Mibla Sabayos I'm only working illegal declaration na mibla confidence in black case. Mibla ba win.
When MTV News arrived at Mendi Airport, there was just black smoke, spilled fuel on the tarmac, ash and debris. It took the plane mere minutes to bend down to ashes, while the tail and both wings survived were all that remained.
The actions taken by, I would rather say it's opportunities, taking advantage of the situation, and they've gone ahead with what happened last time, and our sincere apologies to the Guinea hailing, to the government of Papua New Guinea. We regret the actions taken by the people, mainly the people involved were youths.
While a national court hearing was held at Mendi National Courthouse, during the same hour of the burning down of the plane, protesters stormed in and burnt down the double-story building. Judges, lawyers and everyone there fled for their lives. All court documents went up in flames. State properties such as the district courthouse and DPI office were also destroyed and set alight. The protesters spoke off camera to MTV News, saying that they did all this to get the national government's attention for justice to be served to the little people. 5 days after the incident, locals and business houses held a media conference calling for the leaders to come to Mendi to resolve issues. One of their frustrations was that they never felt the presence of the leaders, including government services.
And this is the first time of its kind now. Then judiciary can say that for special circumstances, future elections, only can talk, oh, while a man lead, even though him absolute majority, he can be declared. So we are setting a bad precedent for this country, Papua New Guinea.
Local youths wanted the provincial government to be suspended pending the court decision and the former fraud squad detective Thomas Elu to administer provincial matters. A state of emergency was declared to contain the unrest.
NEC has done to suspend Southern Islands provincial government. This is 1 year in waiting. Descent after we had to lose properties, we had to lose lives. So much things that happened after the elections. And what we should have had happened 1 year ago is happening now, where we've now seen a rightful decision by the authorities to see.
The local leaders and youths wanted a representative in parliament who has been declared following legal electoral procedures. They say this will give them assurance that services will be delivered.
It's the image that stopped the nation. At 9:45 a.m. Truk local time, New Guinea Boeing 737 flight PX-073 crashed into Truk Lagoon. Passengers scrambled to life rafts as the 737 starts to slowly sink in the Truk Lagoon. PX-073 fell 460 meters short of the Weno Airport runway. On board were 12 crew members and 35 passengers. Still images and video went viral on social media as people tried to understand what really happened to PX-073. At 12:30 p.m. on the 28th of September, the day of the crash, New Guinea released its first media release, advising the public of the crash and that all passengers had safely evacuated the aircraft. A day later, in another press release, the airline announced that a passenger was missing and 6 were seriously injured. 3 days later, U.S. Army divers confirmed that a body had been found on board the aircraft and it was of the missing Indonesian passenger. MTV News interviewed a journalist who was on board flight PX-073. He gave his account of what happened before and after the crash.
One passenger says that there was some kind of an announcement saying to brace for landing. And if that was the warning, then that would have not been sufficient for me. But I didn't hear that announcement. I was in the back of the plane. I don't know what that means. All I know is that we were awfully low, and I thought to myself that every time we're that low, we're usually on the runway. And then all of a sudden we were landing, which I thought was awfully, excessively hard to land on a runway. And I looked over, and there was a hole in the plane on the other side.
Janes, who was sitting toward the rear of the plane,
criticized the actions of the cabin crew at his section after the crash.
The crew in the front of the plane acted, they were calm, but in my section of the plane, they were panicked, yelling, running, pushing.
2 days after the crash, Air Guinea sent a Fokker 70 aircraft to pick up passengers who wanted to return to Port Moresby to have the airline arrange for their flight routes to their destination. And on the 1st of October, Civil Aviation Minister Alfred Manasseh announced that the PNG Accident Investigation Commission would be a part of the three-country investigation, with the Federated States of Micronesia leading the push for answers.
Investigations are that the various recorders in the aircraft have all been safely taken out of the aircraft, and as we speak, the flight data and cockpit voice recorder, the automated flight information reporting system, have been flown to Port Moresby, arrived here on Friday.
The PNG Accident Investigation Commission were given the responsibility of downloading, decoding and analyzing data from the flight data and cockpit voice recorder, also known as the black box. MTV News were lucky to get exclusive footage of the painstaking process as the flight data recorder is taken apart piece by PNG AIC investigators, and out from the tragic crash, a much warmer story unfolded of PNG AIC taking the lead in the South Pacific with technology to process flight data with the state-of-the-art Mars data downloader. And on the 29th of October, the preliminary report was released, answering some of the many unanswered questions. The report confirmed the Boeing 737 crashed 460 meters short of the runway, and the aircraft, after the crash, turned 210 degrees clockwise and drifted 140 meters southeast. The aircraft then sank in 90 feet of water to the Truk Lagoon seabed. And following the preliminary report, a further safety recommendation was issued by PNG AIC for safety cards on board the Boeing 737 be changed, as it depicted the aircraft having more than 2 life rafts for the business class. The amendments were made by Air Guinea and reported the changes back to the PNG AIC. Meanwhile, the much-awaited final report that will contain the analysis, findings, cause and contributing factors is expected to be released in 2019.
Outside of health, education and housing are 2 other critical areas of concern which were highlighted this year. Most times, our teachers have no voice to speak about the pressures they face in teaching our children. MTV News led the way in finding out why, for several fortnights, some teachers were getting as low as 7 kina in their pay packets. And our other focus for the year was the issue of families being evicted under dubious circumstances. This involved what was later found to be a National Housing Corporation office in Lae having been neglected for over a decade.
Education is a key priority of government. Every year, education receives the biggest slice in the budget. But events this year left many teachers wondering if there had been budget cuts they didn't know about. Into the second half of the year, teachers from all over the country began experiencing cuts to their salaries.
Every moment when you cut back a teacher's salary, you are already issue of quality is going out the window.
Initially, many thought that these were isolated cases until MTV began combing through the reports that were being sent from all over the country. In Lae City, teachers were reporting deductions of up to 300 kina per fortnight with no clear explanations at the time.
So I've simply asked both those agencies just to quickly look into the queries and to make sure that we are paying the teachers what we should be paying them and address it as quickly as possible.
The story of a senior Markham Road primary school teacher, Shamila Pisep, drew a lot of anger from Papua New Guineans here and abroad after she received only 7 kina for more than 2 consecutive fortnights. Others reported that they found it difficult getting their own payslips printed and that they were being charged upwards of 60 kina for third parties to access their personal details and print out copies of their payslips.
We are disappointed with that. We don't know why that is happening. I have directed the minister and of course Secretary for Education and our Chief Secretary to go and investigate this today, and I want the report on my desk by Friday.
It took a month of intense media coverage before the Education Department began its own investigations, ordered by the Education Minister, Nick Kuman.
Mr. Speaker, there is no deductions at all. There is no deductions from the government that I am aware of. It is just simply because there must be some misunderstanding that this is a software time here. I think at big money to come to pay packet loan. A lot of teachers, you know, all they go out, some more money from all dinner we finish long and all increase him, and then it becomes a problem for them.
On the health front, clinics in Ley City provided a glimpse into an even bigger nationwide problem as they struggled with acute medicine shortages.
Antibiotic, normally me say treat him everyday patient coming in from Monday to Friday.
Investigations by MTV found that basic medical drugs, including antibiotics and antimalarials, were in short supply in all 7 urban clinics.
So many are dying from preventable illnesses.
In rural areas, the problems continued. The Health Minister also responded in Parliament, announcing reforms to procurement and distribution systems that he expected would ease the problem.
Right at the moment, one of the issues that have surfaced is our procurement process. For example, recently some of the drugs have been short supply because one of the procurement tenders was done, pre-bidding meetings were held between the bidders, but then there was at the CSTB level, there was a redirection for us to only give tenders, one tender, one contractor, one supplier.
After 18 years of being polio-free, the infectious virus found its way back onto our shores. The first case, a 6-year-old boy in the Morobe province. The Health Department and WHO confirmed that the virus was first detected in the boy in April, and a vaccine-derived poliovirus type 1 was isolated as the cause of paralysis, which followed in May. On 26 June, the government declared the outbreak in Morobe province, describing it as a national public health emergency. From Morobe, the virus traveled up the highway to Medang and into the highlands region. Following this trend, an outbreak response campaign was launched on July 16th by the Health Department and WHO through the Global Polio Eradication Initiative in Morobe, Medang, and Eastern Highlands. The vaccination campaign extended to NCD in September after a case was confirmed at the 5 Mile settlement. Following that, the nationwide campaign was launched in October.
Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia, and then the technical agencies like UNICEF and WHO, who are really behind us, and we have the funding to undertake this exercise.
Emergency operation centers were set up in each province. With only 9,000 health workers deployed, they were able to meet the nationwide target of vaccinating 3.2 million children through 4 rounds of vaccinations. That number is believed to have increased despite incidents of health workers being raped and problems with logistics. Apart from vaccinations, health workers also promoted social mobilization and awareness. The government responded with a commitment of 2 million kina, which was added with a 7.2 million kina support through the Global Polio Eradication Initiative.
We have so far delivered 10 million of doses of oral polio vaccines, and that's already in the field for 4th rounds as well. Vital work also has been done to improve the cold chain systems in the districts and provinces and health facilities.
Polio is a viral infection that can cause paralysis and is life-threatening if the paralysis affects the muscles responsible for breathing. The virus usually enters the environment in the feces of someone who is infected. In areas with poor sanitation, the virus easily spreads from feces into the water supply or by touch into food. In addition, because polio is so contagious, direct contact with a person infected with the virus can cause polio. There is no cure for polio. The only effective way to prevent it is to get immunized. Therefore, health experts are reiterating that parents make sure that their children are vaccinated.
So we need multiple doses to ensure all children have sufficient immunity to block the transmission. And we aim to get the polio out of PNG again and make the PNG polio-free again.
Last month, Dr. Dapang confirmed that polio was detected in the sewage treatment ponds near Gerehu, Waigani and Joyce Bay in Port Moresby. However, he assured the public that the risk of getting infected from contaminated water and vegetables was minimum because the virus is weak and can be inactivated if the temperature reaches 50 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, the nationwide campaign has ended for the year and will continue early next year. Again, the message going out to parents and guardians is to get children below 15 years vaccinated.
The National Housing Corporation in Leh drew heavy media attention towards the end of 2017 and early 2018 for the number of forced evictions conducted on sitting tenants. Throughout this year, we have covered the stories of more than 10 families who were victims of these evictions. One of these families is the Tiggy family. Their case has taken 10 years, however, they are still waiting to be given their title by the state. The late Tiggy and his wife Ellen signed a tenancy agreement and moved into this property on Doyle Street at Eriku in 1983. Late Biss bought the property through the government sell-off scheme over 10 years with a fortnightly deduction of 112 kina during this period. 6 years after settling the payment, he signed the contract of sale and transfer instruments that would allow the title transfer to take place. In 2008, however, they were told someone else had the title to the property. They were forcefully evicted several times in favor of the man claiming the title.
Mi bin time masta ikisim eviction notice. Been put down lo sick lo same year. Stroke kisim 8 mil lo house sick. Mi look out mem lo house sick. Mi go come long court. Making me go and 4 years start 2011 die.
We were last informed by the NHC office in Leh that the other title was deemed illegal and it was struck out. The family has since been waiting to get their title from the state.
Mi plek just yogata something pinis kam na mi pla shopping pinis. We don't know what to do now.
Meanwhile, the person occupying the property has put it up for sale. The Nessats are another family who were evicted from their home in February. Their father, Peter, is a retired police officer who served as the provincial police commander for Morobe.
I've been the longest serving PPC of Morobe.
They were given a 7-day eviction order to vacate the house they had been living in for the past 30 years.
Eviction notice bianim molsem title mixim long lens office lo must be minusite solem.
The eviction was in favor of a businessman. Mr. Nessat said he expressed his interest to purchase the property as a long-term tenant and filled in necessary documents with the NHC, but the sale did not happen.
I was waiting for the title after paying my deposit and conveyance certificate, and we will wait him now. Title come.
In June, frustrated families in the Salamander area responded to an article quoting Matthew Limu, an NHC officer, claiming to be the acting provincial manager. He said the titles issued to the residents were fake and had to be returned. Most of them are families of public servants who have expressed their interests in buying the houses and have also filled in forms but are still waiting for their titles.
National Housing Commission Lands Department only must look na go through the process na process multiple.
Whilst waiting, some of them were evicted upon being told that they had areas. Records shown by some families show that rental payments were up to date.
So he was paying all that through the works and supply. They were doing deductions fortnightly.
In response to this, an officer from the NHC headquarters said that Limu had no authorization to release such statements, and his appointment, quoted in the media as the acting provincial NHC manager, did not follow due process. In August, up to 20 families living in a set of old brick units along Lay 7th Street were given notices to pay outstanding arrears or face the possibility of eviction after 21 days. One of the main concerns the tenants had was the manner in which the NHC had been demanding payments of outstanding arrears and the reliability of NHC records. MTV established in January that the NHC's official record system was in disarray and had been this way for the last 10 years. The most recent eviction was early this month, when the families of 2 public servants were forced out of their homes. It was done in favor of a man claiming he had bought the place from the NHC 4 years ago. The families were evicted with their belongings, and the trees in their yard were chopped down. That same afternoon, they managed to obtain a restraining order and moved back into the property. NHC's regional manager for Momase, Andrew Augui, said he was not aware of the eviction and the eviction was not authorized by the NHC management in Lay. Many tenants have opted to seek help from their political representatives because the systems of government, including NHC, police and the courts, have worked against them. Amidst the reports of unlawful evictions and questionable procedures, 5 families managed to get their titles after many years. In a small but significant ceremony held at the Fields Motel in February, Regional Manager Andrew Augui said the process was slow for many.
These 5 recipients today received their titles. They participated under the national government's giveaway scheme policy. That's about 4,000 houses throughout the country.
Among them was Margaret Wera, who received the title on behalf of her late husband.
1993 to 2017, mi plawaitim title nogan.
The number of unlawful evictions, outdated records, and even the lack of an official bank account shows that there needs to be more attention given to improve the NHC and its operations.
MTV's 2018 Year in Review continues after the break. This is MTV's 2018 Year in Review. One could say that 2018 was the year of infrastructure in PNG. The Works Department got a breath of new life and focused on improving national highways. One of these was the Bougainville Highway in New Ireland. The National Airports Corporation emphasized the importance of maintaining our rural airstrips. And in the lead-up to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Leaders Week, the completed Independence Boulevard was officially opened by Chinese President Xi Jinping.
The Bougainville Highway, which stretches from the tip to the tail of the New Ireland province, remains the oldest but well-maintained highway in the country. The 260-kilometer road is an important link connecting people in the 2 New Ireland districts of Keviang and Namatanai. This national icon is a man-made structure built by German colonial administrator Franz Buluminski. After independence in 1975, the national government identified it as a national road. Now it is one of the best sealed roads in the country.
So far so good. I think on the national highways, the only highway that is functioning, that is in good shape, is the Buluminski Highway.
The Bougainville Highway serves as a lifeline for the people of New Ireland and those who visit the province. Because limestone is used in the construction of the road, it is less expensive to maintain compared to other national highways. 2 months ago, the entire stretch of the highway was sealed through joint funding between the national government and local authorities. For the national government, maintaining such a national highway is significant. A state team led by the Works Minister visited New Ireland mid this year to assess the progress of the road sealing towards the Namatanai side.
A lot of these roads have been allowed to deteriorate. When a little pothole pops up, it's important that we repair them quickly while they're still small, and the roads will continue to provide that service that we require.
The highway runs the entire length of New Ireland and through some of the most intriguing scenes of the coastal communities of the province. And since sealing was completed, travel time has decreased compared to the past. It will now take less than 4 hours to drive from one end to the other. There is constant movement of people between Keveng and Namatanai. Inland and island communities are making their way into town to sell local produce. Despite high cost of PMV fares, there is more to earn as transportation time has been eased by the well-sealed maintained road. Both the national and New Ireland provincial government will join hands to maintain the road going into the future.
In PNG, we need over $1 billion kina a year to keep the roads to its standard. At the moment, the department picks up, I think, not more than 250 million, which is only a quarter of what is required.
For now, Buluminski remain a must-travel road in the country. Papua New Guinea has some of the most rugged, challenging and yet breathtaking geographical landscapes. But this does not help in building a proper, affordable and reliable transport system. Over the years, focus has been on building roads by connecting missing links. The air transport sector has had significant impact projects, especially the major ports. Under the World Bank's CADI program, more than 10 airport facilities were upgraded to aviation standard. Despite this, most rural communities remain inaccessible. Civil Aviation Minister Alfred Manasseh says the same focus and monetary support must be given to build and improve rural airstrips throughout the country.
Getting a couple of these airstrips up and running going forward, I'm thinking about doing is having some discussions with the Department of Transport and rural airstrips and some of our government agencies that are involved in formulating policies to come up with airfares and freight subsidy policy.
Rural airstrips played a huge role prior to the country gaining independence. The use of third-level airlines from churches and NGOs were helpful in delivering services of health and education.
Airstrip been shut down, we play panimat, no more economic loyana.
Many have scaled down while others are challenged by neglect and poor management of the facility. The national government, through the Rural Airstrip Agency, is now embarking on plans to redevelop, maintain and develop more rural airstrips around the country. This effort was initiated mid this year.
Yes, RA is very passionate about working alongside communities. We want to see communities get the services that other areas in non-rural Papua New Guinea get. So we want to see rural communities get health services and education services. And we want to see them get community development services and other government services that they are entitled to.
According to a survey by the RRA, rural inland and coastlines can be only accessible by air in no time and is very cost-effective. With plans to build roads being time-consuming and becoming an expensive exercise, the agency is calling on the national government to identify and help build or maintain existing rural airstrip facilities.
Through the Rural Airstrips Authority that the government has established to maintain many of the rural airstrips, keep them to a certain standard, and then we partner with some of the third-level operators to actually service those airstrips.
Only a handful of districts in the country have utilized the Rural Airstrip program. Some have joined, but funding and maintenance has been an issue. Rural airstrips mean a lot to those who do not have access to proper roads or shipping services. According to RRA and other stakeholders, if this transport sector is revived and given the support it needs, significant and valuable economic support will be triggered by the services of rural airstrips.
Welcome back to MTV's 2018 Year in Review. This was always going to be a big year for business in PNG. There was much anticipation as to what APEC would bring to the country in terms of economic benefits. That question is yet to be clearly answered. There were, however, several firsts for locally produced or PNG-made products. A gallop nut project in East New Britain showed how to take a humble crop and turn it into a strong business prospect. Innovative agro-industry business proved the potential of downstreaming dairy and localized fresh fruit like strawberries.
On the morn of January 24th, Innovative Agro-Industry Chairman Elan Wise presented the first bottle of Ilimo dairy milk to Minister Richard Maru. The farm is a partnership between the Central Province Government, IAI PNG, and the state. It was this day that the US $40 million investment in the development of a local dairy industry manifested.
Really, I have years of experience in dairy industry. I've tasted the milk. This is the best milk that you can find universally, globally, okay? No compromises on quality.
When the products reached the market, they were sold at half the price of what fresh milk is currently being sold for. Minister Maru said the primary reason why PNG's economy is suffering is because PNG is importing more than it can export. With the government's priority in agriculture, this bottle of milk gave a great boost for more locally produced products.
In total, we import about 400 million kilowatt of milk every single year out of Australia and New Zealand. The Ilimo project will see us replace a third of our total milk imports. It won't be enough to replace all the imports, but it'll be enough to replace a third.
By May, the farm doubled in production with 12 tons of fresh milk per day. More flavors of fresh milk were added within the next quarter. The farm started off with 500 Holstein Friesians, originally from New Zealand, and to date, the herd numbers over 700. The biggest production expense is the cattle feed, but because Innovative Agro-Industry has been able to grow most of it locally, they were able to reduce that cost. 110 hectares of stock feed is grown on site, and all feed is processed on site. However, more is needed. In April, Ilimo Dairy Farm received the first harvest from the Central Province Smallholder Maize Project, a partnership with the province to deliver a maize outgrower program. Stephen Kapateai from Kuriva in the Karaku district was the first farmer to successfully deliver 1 ton of locally grown maize.
I am so excited. This is a great initiative through DAL, and I'm very proud of what I have done.
IAI PNG has also been working in partnership with the Enga provincial government to deliver locally farmed vegetables to local consumers. Through their agro-industrial center facility in Sirunki, they are now commercially producing strawberries, which can be found in selected supermarkets in Port Moresby. On the 24th of July, IAI, in partnership with Enga Province, opened a modern produce processing and distribution depot at 9 Mile. This state-of-the-art facility washes, cleans, sorts, packages, cools, and facilitates distribution to deliver high-quality produce to the Port Moresby retail market. Enga Governor Sir Peter Ipatas said the once prone to violent community is now engaged in farming activities.
Over the years, I have tried as a governor to have a vegetable project. We have tried, but we've always lacked management and expertise. And I see that there is a chance for us to succeed in this project because we have now got the right expertise and people who know how to do business.
Another great achievement that was celebrated this year was the new and exclusive product released by the Gallop Nut Company, which is PNG's first homegrown nut brand called the Gallop Nut and also known as the Super Nut. This project is a great achievement between PNG and Australian organizations and the farmers of Gazelle Peninsula, East New Britain province. The Gallip Nut Company officially launched and showcased their products in July at the Stanley Hotel. The forest tree nut kernels are grown, harvested, cracked, hand-peeled, dried and packaged in East New Britain. On shelves, customers can purchase 3 different varieties. Natural is lightly dried gallip nut for all your cooking needs at home or in the restaurant. Roasted is seasoned with salt and sugar and roasted to make an ideal snack. And peeled where the skin is removed and then dried. The launch of commercializing the indigenous nut found in the coastal and New Guinea islands was a project that took over 10 years of research to reach this point.
With GPL, we've got here some 4 products that we are promoting here, and we are looking forward to working with GPL, and we are excited that a local company wants to step forward to take a local product and commercialize it not here in PNG only, but to go abroad, overseas.
There are over 970 recorded farmers who are part of the Gallip Nut Company, and 28% of them are female. The company aims to create local economic opportunities and empower rural communities by developing a new nut industry in PNG.
MTV's 2018 Year in Review continues after the break. This is MTV's 2018 Year in Review. On the political front, more firsts. The catchphrase was more financial autonomy. The provinces of New Ireland, Enga and East New Britain were given the green light to implement more power and authority over their provincial management and development. And after long delays, the final question to be put in the autonomous region of Bougainville's 2019 political referendum vote was agreed to by the governments of Bougainville and PNG. And toward the tail end of this year, more rumblings and claims about who will prevail in an anticipated 2019 vote of no confidence.
New Ireland is among Enga, East New Britain and the autonomous region of Bougainville being given more autonomy from the national government. For New Ireland, it's a path which follows its Malagan Declaration.
Autonomy, it must go ahead, now bringing back resources belong, all people belong, you may come back.
Sitting Governor Sir Julius Chen has been the driving factor behind the push for autonomy. The kind of autonomy New Ireland wants is different from the autonomous region of Bougainville. The provincial governor believes it is the right time for New Ireland to be bestowed these powers to manage their affairs and contribute to the national purse.
These benefits of autonomy have been long known to the rest of the world. If your country includes many different groups with different cultures and histories, they need a government system that recognizes their difference, celebrates those differences, and by celebrating them, forges a stronger unity.
It has been a hard-fought battle to realign the public service mechanism for the New Ireland provincial government, with only 2 districts, Keveng and Namatanai, pulling the strings for a vibrant service delivery system is now a challenge for the ruling Chen-powered government. Since the announcement of autonomy, the New Ireland provincial government has been visited by the ruling government to liaise and realign government structures. 2 months ago, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill led a delegation of state ministers to the island of Tonga, where decentralization of powers was handed over by Minister responsible, Kevin Isifu.
agenda belong, CJ, agenda belong me, Minister. This is government policy. And it long, Alatawa code, now you may implement him. Or some government you may implement him now. Lo make him show you may remove him all powers for Wagani. Central powers are start for national government. You may bring him down all provinces so that all he can work hard na kirabim country bring him.
Many criticize the decision, but Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says it is time each province rules with ownership of resources and help the government support and grow the country's economy.
The first step that we have embarked on with 3 provinces will continue over the next 7 years. Every year we will try our very best to empower 3 different provinces.
Autonomy for New Ireland is still a long and challenging road for the political mandate and public structure.
Because only together we can move forward. Supposedly divided, there is little we can do. But united, there is little we cannot do. This is the time. This is the moment.
But the provincial government is taking a step-by-step approach to be granted full autonomy and realize the dreams of its development aspirations.
The decision to transfer some of the national government's powers down to the provincial level was not clearly understood by many citizens. Many thought that Enga, including the New Ireland and East New Britain provinces, were trying to receive independence like the autonomous region of Bougainville. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, during launching in Enga province on October this year, explained that the decentralization of some of the powers being held at the national level to the provincial level translates to greater autonomy and does not mean that the province is independent in its decision. The Prime Minister said this was a way forward for development to take place after the organic law was reviewed in 2012.
Time lo Papua New Guinea come up now, where you must make sure some country, you must position lo Yumi inside the one province inside the country. You must have strong also one the stronger country inside the world. No good to talk about money not working one plus something like you.
This means that the Enga provincial and local level government will be managing its financial, administrative and political functions. Intergovernment Relations Minister Kevin Isifu said Enga province deserved greater autonomy because it has prepared well for over 20 years in terms of education. Minister Isifu said the powers given must be done within the framework of the national constitution.
It's now the start of the process of granting more specific substantial powers to provinces to make their own decisions. And this is unity. Unity between provincial executive councils, DDAs now to work together, sharing resources towards improving service delivery and development in the provinces.
Enga Governor Sir Peter Ipetas clarified to his people that each province in PNG has its own development agenda, and this gives power to the province to focus on addressing its plans. Enga's priority areas are law and order, the police force and teachers' appointment, among others. Sir Peter says the provincial government would have immediate control so that reporting systems are in place for public servants to do their jobs properly.
You trust him more, give him more leadership finish. Walk long leader, and make him decision, now lead forward. You know, look back. Think of future long hanger. So we let look at yourself, people long hanger. Policy long education, policy long hanger. Now Prime Minister, you may be adopting this other country. Thank you, the Prime Minister, and may adopting this policy. Now all Papua New Guineans can benefit.
Enga Provincial Administrator Dr. Samson Amian added that receiving greater autonomy is not so much about money and power.
And with improved coordination, this province will go a long way. Go a long way. But then, as I've said, those of us who are educated, we have a responsibility to our people. Let's say the right thing and do the right thing.
It is about deciding its budget and the appointment processes, powers that were once used at the provincial level before the reform system.
Last night, meet after something, passing resolution or signing this paper this afternoon.
East New Britain's call for greater autonomy wasn't new. 2 months ago, the PNG government finally agreed to the province's request for autonomy, something that took several decades to achieve. Autonomy means the provincial government will have control over most of its internal affairs, including political structures, financial arrangements, and administration.
So now when people are work now, yeah. Ino na long easy, because what we're going to do now, emola se people sign him, there's an agreement on the national government. It's a lot of things to be done with organic law. So meaning se by Palestine is plan the parts through organic law to enable us to receive what we want.
The launch came 12 months after the ruling PNC party formed the government, and one of its agenda was to decentralize powers to selected provinces.
National governments cannot be everywhere. Likewise, provincial governments cannot be everywhere. Districts cannot be at the ward level continuously. That is why decentralization of responsibilities and services to layers of government is very, very important for the success of our country.
East New Britain province has one of the oldest government systems in the country. Long before there was a Waigani, there were already talks of politics and self-governance in East New Britain province. Its roots go back to the early 1800s during the German colonial rule. The natives who were able to attend the colonial schools were educated and have become largely aware of the issues affecting their lives inflicted by the colonizers. Over the years, frustrations accumulated until 1969, when the educated natives bound together and formed the Mataungan Association, an anti-colonial movement which one of their main agendas was to set themselves free from the white rulers. About a century of colonization was long enough that allowed the Tolai natives to have a feel of what it means to be colonized and governed. Until 1995, following numerous reforms, the province was introduced to the national and local level governments. Many have seen the second and third tier of government as a catalyst introduced to quell secession movements, and it took down what the province have already achieved prior to the government reforms.
Autonomy is still being debated as whether it is the right word. But what else can you say? Is there another word? If you replace it, you probably have 20 more sentences to that same word.
Public confidence in the government service delivery in the province has dipped in recent years. Education standard has dropped immensely. Health services continue to ail, and road infrastructures have deteriorated beyond repair. The launching of the autonomy in October this year was an apparent gesture of reconciliation and is expected to rebuild and restore those lost confidence.
On October the 12th, 2018, after 2 days of intense discussions, the leaders of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous Bougainville government finally agreed to a key component for the upcoming referendum vote, the referendum question. This now paves the way for further awareness and preparation for the referendum vote, which has been set for June 15, 2019. In announcing this, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill described that day as a significant moment in the history of Papua New Guinea.
It is a simple but a momentous occasion. And I have the greatest privilege of joining one of our founding fathers of our great nation, President John Momis, on this occasion about finding a way forward on the issue about Bougainville and the resolution of the issues that we want to achieve on Bougainville. This particular joint supervisory body meeting has been earmarked specially for the issue about referendum that is going to be held next year.
The referendum question provides two choices for the people of Bougainville: greater autonomy or independence. The questions were agreed to following lengthy discussions and negotiations by both governments. The referendum process will see people vote on the referendum question, both the national government and ABG consult on the referendum result, and the national parliament to decide on the outcome of the referendum. It is hoped that with the confirmation, work by the Bougainville Referendum Commission can now gain momentum towards the referendum exercise in 2019.
It is my great pleasure that today we announce that both sides have agreed to the question that is going to be put to the people of Bougainville. And that question is going to reaffirm our commitment in the fulfillment of the Bougainville Peace Agreement, and of course in compliance with our national constitution. The ballot paper has been agreed to, and clearly the ballot paper reflects the true spirit of which the peace agreement was signed some 20 years ago by our forefathers.
Autonomous Bougainville Government President, Chief John Momis, thanked the government of PNG for its efforts in bringing the negotiations on referendum to this stage, with the President highlighting the Prime Minister's leadership in recent years.
And I believe if we act with integrity, the outcome will be good for both sides. And Prime Minister, I want to thank you once again and say that you leave a great legacy when you decide to leave politics, because this problem has been a perennial problem in Papua New Guinea and Bougainville. And I think what we have committed ourselves to do from henceforth augurs well for both PNG people and Bougainvillians. I also want to thank the officials for the great job that they've done in a short time, led by the two chief secretaries. I want to thank the United Nations for the help they've given to PNG and to Bougainville, and I thank you especially as a leader of the country for your commitment and for the resilience you have shown in dealing with these difficult problems. And I think, as I said, this is the beginning of new good things to come in the future.
With the question now confirmed, Prime Minister O'Neill has also reaffirmed the national government's commitment to Bougainville in the lead-up to and following the referendum exercise.
And I want to assure the people of Bougainville, and of course to President and the leaders of Bougainville, that you have a commitment from our government that we will go through this step of ensuring that there is free and fair referendum on Bougainville, and that our people can have their say in the determination of the political future of our people on the island.
With just 6 months to go before the referendum target date, progress has been quite slow. The appointed chairman of the Referendum Commission, Betty Ahern, finally met with representatives from the national government and autonomous Bougainville government in the final quarter of this year in an effort to speed up preparations for the referendum exercise. Back on Bougainville, the office of the Bougainville Electoral Commission has already begun preparations, with the electoral roll update exercise having commenced this year. According to Bougainville Electoral Commissioner George Manu, this is being done in preparation for a successful exercise come June 2019.
The second phase would be the actual conduct of the enrollment. Now, once we do that, data will be processed, and we should have a roll, a preliminary roll, a referendum roll for the referendum by December this year, if all goes well. In normal elections, once enrollment data is collected, we take it back to the central area of, say, Buka, and we process the data. With the referendum exercise, data will be processed at the community government level. We will be training people to process the data out in the, so that it's easier to go back to that voter recorder and say, look, is this name okay? So that's how. So that's the one other thing that we have agreed to do that. So data will be processed at the district level, at the community government level. So our job is that to make sure that every Bougainvillians are enrolled, so that they will be able to cast their votes when the time comes. Most of our Bougainvillians outside live within the vicinity of the city and town, so they should have access to we will be appointing enrollment agents, maybe election managers as returning officers and their staff as enrollment agents to do the enrollment for us. Once that the enrollment is done there, it comes back to us. We send it down to their community governments. They will confirm whether yes, he's from that area. So that's what's going to happen.
With the referendum exercise beginning, the eyes of the world will be on Papua New Guinea and more particularly on Bougainville. Whilst 2018 has provided some highlights in regards to preparations for this political exercise, 2019 promises to be an even bigger and better year for the autonomous region of Bougainville.
Welcome back to MTV's 2018 Year in Review. This year was always going to be about APEC. From the lead-up meetings which began at the start of the year to the highly anticipated APEC Economic Leaders Week, APEC has left its mark on Port Moresby. The city was host to and saw the playing out of geopolitical tensions between the world's two biggest superpowers in the US and China. This gave rise to discussion of a naval base to be set up in Manus, and it culminated in a rampage by security personnel at the National Parliament House over unpaid APEC security allowances.
The hosting of the 2018 APEC and CEO Summits was always going to bring with it challenges and criticisms. While the national government says it will benefit PNG's growing economy in the long run, the opposition were of the opinion that there were better ways to spend much of what was budgeted for APEC. In the months leading up to APEC, Port Moresby received a massive facelift, from the reconstruction of the famous Ella Beach to the sealing of the Purana Freeway and the building of PNG's first boulevard. The assistance and support given by our bilateral partners also came in a massive way. The support from the Chinese government was visible, from the donation of 94 buses and fire trucks to the reconstruction of the International Convention Center. The venue was used to host over 200 meetings for APEC senior officials. The Australian and New Zealand governments invested in security preparedness. This included training on counter-terrorism attacks to close personal protection and defensive driving. Led by the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary, the 22 law enforcing agencies in PNG were tasked to work with police to deliver a safe and secure APEC. Additional manpower support came from the US, New Zealand and Australia, who travelled up with naval vessels, jet fighters and bulletproof vehicles. Chinese President Xi Jinping was the first of 21 world leaders to arrive in the country for a 2-day state visit. The other world leaders started arriving after that. Some landed in their private planes, while others through government aircraft. The US Vice President Mike Pence arrived on the morning of the CEO's summit. Initially, it was announced that the Vice President would be staying in Australia, but after all the safety checks were conducted, he spent the night in PNG. The CEO Summit was hosted on one of the cruise ships where US Vice President Mike Pence announced that US will be supporting the joint naval base to be built in Manus. The announcement was seen as confirmation to the uncertainty many Papua New Guineans, especially those from Manus province, have been questioning.
It's my privilege to announce
that the United States will partner with Papua New Guinea and Australia on their joint initiative at Lombrum Naval Base on Manus Island.
The Apec Summit held at the Apec House began with a family photo, but after hours of discussions, the Apec leaders did not sign a communique, and the blame for this has been shared amongst the US and the Chinese government for their interest for both political and economic presence in the Indo-Pacific region.
Amidst all the global challenges and economic conditions that we are facing today, there are new challenges, and the APEC leaders recognize that. The APEC leaders also recognize the rising tensions between the trading countries around the world, particularly on goods and services that are being traded between each other. But APEC leaders continue to focus on the efforts about trying to reduce inequalities, focus on making sure there is economic diversification, and working together so that we can remove trade barriers, so that we can drive growth and ensuring prosperity for our people.
3 days after the 2018 Apec Summit ended, history was created when security personnel caused damages at the National Parliament House. This act alone costing millions of kina. Out of frustration over delayed APEC allowances, over 300 members of the Joint Security Task Force went on a rampage. While most people have criticized the police and correctional officers for destroying an iconic building in the country, the JSTF commander, Gary Baki, says senior officers in the police hierarchy should be blamed for this.
Most often we see police abuses happening right under our nose, but we deliberately condone it when it comes to, and we fail to investigate and punish those perpetrators. This is causing public to lose confidence, faith, and trust in our ability to fight crime. As senior officers of the constabulary, we must take corrective measures now to restore command and control and to ensure discipline and ethics is maintained and sustained at all times.
And while the PNG government can be proud that the 2018 Apec Summit was successfully hosted in Port Moresby, 2019 will see those in authority working harder to pay all service providers and JSTF members outstanding APEC bills and allowances.
Welcome back to MTV's 2018 Year in Review. We take a look at sports now, and it has been an event-filled year with some significant milestones. The PNG Palais qualified for the first time for the 2022 World Cup. After the Oceania Sevens in Fiji, they finished in the top 6 to qualify for the HSBC 7 Series circuit in 2019. And while the World Cup was halfway across the world and major time differences away, mad football fans stayed up till morning to catch the matches. Our MTV Sports team with this wrap-up for the year.
The PNG ICTSI Palais have had a successful year, qualifying for the Hong Kong 7 Series after finishing 4th at the Oceania Sevens tournament in Fiji in November. They took part in their first tournament this year at the HSBC 7 Sydney leg on the 3rd and 4th of February. They began their training in November 2017, which brought them to the Sydney leg. After the Sydney tournament, the team was back in training for the Brisbane Hideout and the Hong Kong 7 Series. This also saw 7 new players from Australia join the team, which has helped the team's performance throughout the year.
Some of the girls sport, but it's a challenge to all the girls. We got 6 girls in Brisbane, 1 in Sydney to join us in camp. So it's a big challenge, but I have to look at the best to take to Hong Kong. I wanted to qualify for the HSBC. It's just only 4 spots, and we're really working hard for it.
The Palais were determined to qualify for the World Circuit and finish in the top 8 at the HSBC 7 Series in Hong Kong. Coach John Larry was confident the team would qualify after much preparation. Sponsorship was an ongoing issue for both the PNG Pukpuks and the Palais. In April this year, the Palais received a timely boost from ICTSI South Pacific, coming on board as naming rights sponsors. Since they returned from their 7th series in Hong Kong, the team only took a week break and got back into training in preparation for the 2018 World Cup in San Francisco. The Palais preparation was going well with support from High Performance Sport, and with the Rugby World Cup only a month away, a selection trial was held to select a squad for the World Cup. The trial match saw 22 players vying for the 12 available spots. A farewell dinner was held at Stanley Hotel in Port Moresby by sponsor ICTSI South Pacific for the PNG RFU national women's team. The team displayed their uniforms and also took time to share their appreciation towards their sponsorship for Rugby 7's World Cup 2018 in San Francisco. The Palais settled in well after arriving in San Francisco a day out from their first game. In the US, the team did some training as part of their preparations ahead of their first match against Australia. The Palais' best efforts in their first match against a strong Australian side were not enough for a win. Despite their struggle, the Aussies kept their cool, smoothly moving forward to win the match 34-5. In PNG's second match, they weren't able to stop a dominant Fijian side. They played their best game against Brazil. Both teams showed great defense, but their skilled Brazilian side took the better of the Palais to finish on top with 15 points to 12. After returning from the US, the team was back in training for the Oceania Sevens tournament in Fiji. The Palais qualified for the Hong Kong 7th series after finishing 4th at the Oceania Sevens. Captain Cassandra Sampson said the team performed well together in their pool matches despite losing to Australia and Fiji.
The girls did pretty well. We had worked after the game. We had always worked on where we had to pick up on, watching our video sessions, and we wanted to qualify, and that's what we did. We did qualify, coming fourth as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to our Sydney and Hong Kong tour.
The team is now preparing for the Hong Kong Sevens tournament to be held next year.
Well, there you have it, the biggest events that made our headlines this year. We did, however, end the year on a good note. Miss PNG Leoshina Kariha won the prestigious Miss Pacific Islands title. 18-year-old Leoshina, a Divinewood student, was the youngest contestant. This is PNG's second win in the regional competition. PNG also won in 2015 through Abigail Havora. PNG will host the pageant next year. We hope you enjoyed this recap of the year that was, and we hope you all, like us, learned a bit more about the resilience, determination, and passion of our people. After all, it is what makes us uniquely Papua New Guinean. On behalf of MTV News producer Cynthia Demara, Regional News Head Scott Wyde, our presenters Helen Saya and Mira Batulo, and our entire MTV News teams from around the country, wishing you all and your families a prosperous 2019. Good night.